An individual by the name of Gol D. Roger served his extermination sentence in the harbor city of Lobetown 22 years ago. He earned the title of Pirate King. The Vice Admiral of the Navy, Garp, ultimately succeeded in apprehending him after a protracted search. Gol D. Roger was seen as a criminal, but he had a huge following. He made the decision to reveal the whereabouts of his fabled riches before he died. The pirate asserted that One Piece was hidden on the Grand Line in front of a sizable audience of admirers and detractors. He guaranteed that whoever finds it will have fame, fortune, and power. Roger finished his final speech, was eliminated, and the Great Age of Pirates started. In search of the lost wealth of the Pirate King, men and women set sail at sea filled with hope. Monkey D. Luffy, a young guy who has wanted to discover One Piece since he was a child, is one of them. Because his boat is sinking and he is unable to swim to prevent being sucked into the water, all he needs is a devoted crew and a ship. Before a boat decides to save him, the young man must hide behind a barrel and is swept away by the waves. His barrel eventually finds itself in the middle of a pirate ship battle after a few days at sea. One of them is owned by Captain Alvida, a wanted Navy fugitive with a $5 million bounty on her head. After destroying the opposing ship, the woman commands her crew to bring back all of the supply barrels, including the one where Luffy is hiding. Kobe is compelled to obey Captain Alvida's instructions or else face being tossed overboard, despite the fact that he despises the pirates, and particularly dislikes her. The young man is working in the hold that evening when he hears a commotion and realizes there is an intruder aboard the ship. Luffy introduces himself and says he's a pirate when he first sees him. He intends to travel to the Grand Line, often known as the ship graveyard, as soon as he obtains a ship. Kobe assists the young man in stealing one of the lifeboats, in an effort to help him escape before his captain awakens, but Luffy wakes up the entire crew unintentionally. Alvida assaults Kobe because she thinks he has deceived her. Nevertheless, Luffy stops the young man from being struck and takes out the crew. The crew learns that Luffy's body is made of rubber when one of the guys shoots at the intruder during the combat. Stretching enables him to avoid all of Alvida's blows and knock the woman overboard with a single strike. On that day, Kobe finally succeeds in escaping the pirates who had him in custody, and joins Luffy in sailing for the Grand Line. Kobe questions his new acquaintance about the source of his abilities as they are traveling. The young man then decided to share his experience. Luffy's childhood fantasy was to join Shanks' gang and travel the world with his band of sailors. Although he was too young to sail, the small child was constantly attempting to convince his companion that he was ready to join the pirates. During one of these attempts, he hurt his face, leaving a scar that will follow him for the rest of his life. After getting his wounds bandaged, Luffy explores the crew's previous expedition's loot and discovers a curious fruit. The young man consumes it and then enters the pub, where Shanks and his men are waiting. Everyone realizes he has acquired superpowers at that point. Without realizing it, Luffy consumed a devil's fruit, which enabled him to expand every part of his body. When the young man tells Kobe his secret and asks him what he wants to accomplish with his life, Kobe replies that his ultimate desire is to join the Navy and defend people. Luffy changes his course and sails to the closest Navy base in order to give his pal the chance to join a group of Marines, and give himself the opportunity to steal a map that would lead him to the Grand Line, because he is excited about the prospect of realizing his dream. After arriving in the City of Shells, the two decide to eat at a restaurant to refuel for their mission. A young boy approaches a fighter there named Roronoa Zoro and brings him a plate of onigiri. When Rika accidentally spills the meal on Helmeppo at that particular moment, Helmeppo is furious. After stepping on the dinner, he threatens the girl, which enrages Zoro. The swordsman graciously acknowledges Rika's skill in the kitchen after consuming some of the crushed food, and instructs Helmeppo to consume the onageries he walked on. When Zoro hears this, the boy pulls out his katana and charges at him, but Zoro manages to take him out without even drawing his own sword. The other officers join in to fight the swordsman when they witness Captain Morgan's kid being attacked. However, the young man with the green hair swiftly dispatches them without needing to draw any of his swords. a teenage girl named Nami uses the confusion created by the battle to attack a Marine and drag him into cover, so she can steal his uniform. Zoro goes to see Captain Morgan, who is in control of the base. After all the mayhem he has caused, the young swordsman just killed a fugitive's head to claim the reward. He makes his life as a bounty hunter. The most feared pirate hunter in the East Blue is met by Morgan, who commends him on his extraordinary combat prowess, and promises to pay the bounty for the fugitive he has apprehended. The swordsman will first have to serve time in prison for attacking a group of Navy personnel. Zoro will have to hang out in a courtyard for 7 days if he wants his money. He won't be permitted to work as a bounty hunter again if he refuses to complete his term. The young man decides to take his punishment as a result, and Helmeppo teases him. The young man will beg to leave when he is released. Zoro continues. The following morning, Nami enters the Navy facility while wearing the stolen uniform in search of the Grand Line map. Luffy takes a different route to go to the courtyard where Zoro is being detained with the intention of doing the same. When Luffy realizes that Zoro is the swordsman who battled the Marines the previous night, he chooses to release him and extends an invitation for him to join his crew of pirates. Zoro declines the invitation, explaining that he has spent the last few years of his life hunting pirates to live. While looking around the base, Luffy decides to carry out the rest of his assignment. To avoid being imprisoned, Nami is forced to fend off 2 Marines after being unmasked. She kills them and hides their bodies as she hears Luffy enter the room. Since Luffy overheard the entire exchange and is aware that Nami is also an invader, the two decide to work together to avoid capture and proceed to Captain Morgan's office. Suddenly, Captain Morgan shows up, and Nami announces that she is taking the pirate to jail in order to get rid of Axe-Hand Morgan. She even succeeds in stealing the office key from him. In the meantime, Zoro pursues Helmeppo to get his sword, but instead of killing him, he chooses to only cut his hair. Invading the captain's office, Luffy assists Nami in locating the map. The issue is that it's locked up inside a safe, and Captain Morgan has noticed that someone has broken into his office. Luffy succeeds in stealing the safe while he is trying to destroy the door, and they are both tossed out the window after that. They must work together to combat a gang of Marines who assaulted them after the crash. While Luffy attacks the foes with his rubber limbs and legs, Nami utilizes her staff. Zoro suddenly arrives. He has just retrieved his 3 swords, and as a token of gratitude for being set free by Luffy, he chooses to assist him. When the soldiers are successfully dispatched, Captain Morgan shows up, and the group must defeat him. When other police officers come on the scene, Nami attacks them as Luffy and Zoro discuss how to defeat the powerful Morgan. Then Zoro pulls out his 3 blades and stops his adversary in his tracks. He is attacked by Luffy with his rubber leg, and the elderly guy loses. The swordsman takes the safe after winning the conflict, and Nami snatches a boat, so that the gang may flee. Helmeppo suddenly emerges and threatens to shoot them, but he is caught off guard and knocked out after getting punched by Kobe. The young man bids his pal farewell at that point, and informs him that he will remain at the base to enlist in the Navy. The group then proceeds on their journey. That evening, after spending hours attempting to unlock the safe, Nami succeeded in obtaining the priceless map. The boat is attacked just as everything seemed to be going smoothly, and a puff of crimson smoke knocks the crew unconscious. Luffy, though, is able to swallow the map to keep it secure inside his body. Before he loses consciousness, they find themselves locked within a wooden box when they awaken, and when it is opened, they learn they have been taken to an odd circus. They quickly learn that they have been transferred to an island, and that the individuals watching them are actually the prisoners of the town. Then Buggy shows up and admits that he has been preparing to steal the Grand Line map for a while, but now that those kids have completed all the difficult work, everything is simpler. Buggy proceeds to question them separately, because they won't tell where the map is, and Luffy is the first to come under fire. The Straw Hat's arms and legs are bound in front of the entire crowd, and the clown threatens to stretch him until he reveals the location of the map. Buggy seeks to appeal to Luffy's emotional side, after realizing his strategy is failing, and takes a little child to use as a test subject for his insanity. The pirate manages to escape and assaults Buggy when he sees the young child in danger. The group then learns that Buggy has consumed a devil's fruit, and has the power to completely dismember the creature. He uses the red smoke at the precise moment to render Luffy unconscious. The young man awakens to find himself locked in a glass box that is submerged under seawater. Devil fruit has a drawback despite bestowing its users with incredible abilities. Anyone who consumes this fruit becomes weaker when they come into contact with the water. Luffy refuses to give the clown the map, even though he is aware that he might be killed in the tank and drown as a result. Some recollections suddenly spring to mind. When he was a youngster, Luffy was kidnapped at sea by a wicked pirate. The man was going to leave the boy there to perish, but instead he got eaten by a sea monster. Shanks was able to spare Luffy, who was supposed to be the next victim. The beast approached and ate the red-haired man's arm. As they were aboard a little boat in the middle of the ocean, the monster, however, felt threatened as he met the pirate's gaze and slid back into the depths. By this time, Luffy had noticed that his friend's arm had been eaten and felt bad about it. Shanks gave Luffy his straw hat as a farewell gift before he and his crew left on their next adventure a few days later. It was the young man's most valuable possession from that point forward. Zoro is being questioned by one of Buggy's goons, as Luffy gets ensnared in the glass cage. In order for Nami to escape the cage and attack Kabaji, he diverts Kabaji. After releasing her buddy, the young woman chases after the straw hat with her. Nami breaks the glass with her staff after spotting him in peril, and Luffy throws the chart out. Following its capture, Buggy dissects his corpse into numerous pieces, using each one to attack Zoro and Nami. When Luffy discovers what the clown has done to his friends, he attacks him but loses the battle as well. At this time, he has the brilliant idea of enclosing Buggy's body inside crates, and with the aid of his buddies, he is able to completely dispose of Buggy. After removing the remainder of the clown from the tent, Luffy is able to find the map. The three release the villagers, who are incredibly appreciative, before departing. Now that they have the map, their next trip is the Grand Line. But to get there, they need a ship. The team decides to halt in the Gecko Islands at that point, and Nami investigates the security situation there to determine the best time to steal a boat. While exploring the shipyard with Usopp, a young man who cleans the ships, Luffy finds the ideal ship. Usopp claims that each ship's owner is a personal friend of his. Bucci greets the young man as he enters the mansion, but he doesn't seem too happy to see him. Fortunately, Kaya shows up just in time and invites Usopp and his friends to her birthday party. The girl's butler, Clahatter, is not at all fond of the idea. Now that her parents are deceased, he is Kaya's legal guardian, and the one she can trust to do what she wants. He asks Sham to bring the new guests up to the suite, so they can get ready for supper. A short while later, Usopp uses a secret entrance to enter Kaya's chamber and presents her with a birthday gift. As they talk, the young woman starts to cough, and it isn't until she drinks the tea Clahatter has poured for her that she feels better. 3 years ago, Kaya suffered a terrible illness that has never been cured by medicine. Nami meets Mr. Mary, who is in charge of overseeing Kaya's money. By happenstance, after the gang has joined the other guests in the ballroom, the youngster adores her father, who has been providing for the family for a long time. As soon as Kaya turns 18, she will become the sole owner of her parents' estate. Mary tries to warn her about the documents she intends to sign, but is interrupted by Clahatter. Kaya feeds the young woman dinner in a blue outfit that was made especially for her, because she must follow an incredibly tight diet. Just before she is going to eat, she starts coughing, so she is sent to her room. As it is getting late, she extends an invitation to Usopp and his pals to spend the night on the estate. Clahatter visits Mary after the party to speak with her, because he anticipates Mary's attempt to stop Kaya from giving him the shipyard. The butler decides to show off his fangs by stabbing Mary in the back. After gathering every part of his body, Buggy is visited by one of Arlong's goons and taken prisoner. Buggy learns that the town he pillaged belongs to the fishman when he finds him, and Arlong vows to kill him in an effort to rescue himself. The clown offers to help Arlong locate the Grand Line chart, and asserts that he knows where it is. Early in the morning, Zoro goes in quest of a bottle of rum, While Luffy leaves his room to look for meals, by chance, the two cross paths and proceed to the kitchen together. When Nami decides to organize some things in the mansion, she unintentionally walks into Kaya's chamber and is caught. The girl has no animosity against Nami, not even after learning that she is a thief. Instead, Kaya strikes up a friendly conversation with her visitor, and they wind up becoming close. Usopp is waiting for them in the kitchen when they get there, and when they do, he tells them that the mansion's cellar has a wine cellar. Luffy remains in the kitchen to eat the soup that has been prepared for Kaya, as Zoro asks him to lead the way there. Usopp discovers Mary's body while investigating the area, and then Clahater shows up. That person, who used to lead the Black Cat Pirates, goes by the name Kuro. Despite the Navy's claims to the contrary, it appears that Morgan was unable to eliminate the pirate. Zoro hastily prepares his swords after learning the truth, but Sham creeps up on him and attacks with a bottle. Usopp is the next person to be killed, but the young guy escapes and flees for assistance. The remains of Mary and Zoro are subsequently dumped in a pit by Clahater's goons, so that they will never be discovered. Usopp encounters Kobe and Helmeppo, two former Navy cadets who have been deployed to the island to capture Luffy. While rushing around the city pleading for assistance, Usopp explains that his friend is in danger and requests assistance from the Marines in apprehending the butler. After becoming convinced that they are the good ones, Nami visits the kitchen after a lengthy talk with Kaya, and discovers Luffy unconscious. The girl is forced to hide when Clahater and his friends emerge out of nowhere. The butler is upset since he had intended to offer Kaya the soup that Luffy consumed, and Nami is aware that it was poisoned. Kobe rings the doorbell at that very moment, and the butler goes to answer it. Usopp claims that Clahater is the pirate who wants to kill his friend when he finds him, but the Marines can't do anything because he has no evidence to back up his claims. Then, after Helmeppo informs them that they have been sent to apprehend a man named Luffy, Clahater gives the kid to the Marines in an effort to drive them away. Usopp runs to alert Kaya to the danger she is in, as Nami uses the opportunity that Sham is alone to attack her with a frying pan. The kid is in shock when she learns that the person she trusts the most intends to kill her, and her head doesn't start to drop until Nami shows up and reveals that Clahater has been poisoning Kaya for all these years through tea. The trio swiftly leaves through one of the hidden corridors, but the butler discovers them. Fortunately, they are able to fend off the onslaught and make it to Kaya's parents' old room when the girl starts coughing. After being attacked for a few hours, Zoro wakes up and begins to climb the well to the surface. Kobe starts to question the veracity of Usopp's claims. As they make their way back to the Navy ship, Luffy abruptly awakens after finishing all the soup he has consumed. Soon later, the young man is able to make a full recovery. They both return to the mansion when Zoro appears. Clahater enters the chamber where the group is hiding in the meantime. The three children must avoid being discovered while watching as the man completely destroys the area. Kaya and Nami decide to face the enemy, but wind up being captured when they realize they won't be able to hide for long. Zoro and Luffy split up after breaking inside the house to hunt for their companions. Sham and Buchi eventually locate the swordsman, who then has to battle the pirates. With tremendous finesse and ability, Straw Hat battles Clahater. With the aid of his blades, Zoro is able to beat the foes, and he then leaves to locate the other members of his group. Luffy is now attempting to avoid being sliced by Clahater, and after gripping his arms, he throws himself out of the mansion using just his own head. Luffy and his pals must leave the island after capturing the imposters, because the Navy is already aware of their presence there. Kaya agrees to grant them a ship as payment for all the assistance the pirates have provided, and the crew extends an invitation to Usopp to travel with them. After bidding Kaya farewell, the boy departs for the Grand Line with his new pals, while Luffy celebrates his first pirate ship. Suddenly, his ship starts to come under attack, and Luffy realizes his grandfather is trying to kidnap him. Garp gets enraged and launches a cannonball with his own hands at the young man's ship, but the Straw Hat creates a balloon with his body and redirects the shot to the adversary ship. He succeeds in doing this, and the Marines start to move more slowly after one of the sails is brought down. The pirates are able to escape as a result of this. They choose to eat at a seaside restaurant named Barady after a few hours of driving. Zeph fails to fully acknowledge the skill of one of the chefs, a young man named Sanji. Sanji is told to wait tables after creating another dish that isn't on the menu. He then has to use his extraordinary martial arts abilities to break up a dispute between two patrons. When Garp realizes he has lost track of Luffy, he gets in touch with Mihik, the greatest swordsman on Earth. The man is instructed by Garp to seize the Straw Hat. Mihik boasts that his purpose will be accomplished soon, and that he is so strong that he can use his sword to destroy an entire ship. Mihik comes to the Barady that evening, and hears Usopp recount some of the experiences he's shared with Luffy since becoming a pirate. He then explains that his goal is to get Luffy accepted into the Navy, and asks the young man to introduce him to his comrades. Zoro quickly recognizes the man with the cross on his breast, and dares him to sword combat. The young man says that his greatest desire since he was a boy has been to face Mihik in a duel, and claim the title of greatest swordsman in the world. The challenge is accepted, and Mihik predicts Zoro will be defeated at daybreak. The young man can hardly sleep while waiting for the battle after breaking the news to Luffy. The conflict starts when Zoro and Mihik meet at the predetermined spot the following morning. Mihik uses a little blade while arguing that Zoro is unfit to take on the legendary Yoru. Mihik wounds the young man even with his small katana, but Zoro doesn't back down. The swordsman draws his Yoru and, inspired by the young man's persistence, uses it to smash two of Zoro's three swords. When the bounty hunter sees what has happened, he concedes defeat and extends his arms, so that his adversary might kill him. Mihik then makes a large incision in Zoro's abdomen, and declares that Zoro still has time to live. He tells Zoro to keep working out before departing, and he promises to be there when he's ready to battle him once more. When the gang finds his pal unconscious and being carried back to the ship, Luffy returns to the Barady in search of assistance. Sanji and Zeph decide to go there to assist him, since there isn't a doctor inside the eatery. The old man covers the wound with fish skin after stitching it up, and Zoro's pals lead him to his room. A few hours later, Arlong and two other members of his crew show up at the Barady, and make a threat to eat the patrons if Chef Zeph doesn't tell them where Luffy is. Nami happens to be at the eatery at the same moment, and runs to alert her captain. She demands that the crew leave right away, but Luffy is unwilling to allow her to bring harm to uninvolved parties. He pursues Arlong and finds that Buggy's ear has been concealed in his hat the entire time. The fisherman located him in this manner. Zeph takes advantage of Arlong's distraction to shoot at them, but his bullet barely even scratches the shark. Karubi starts attacking the elderly man right away, and Sanji steps in to defend his master. After defeating the cook, Luffy goes after the shark, but quickly realizes he can't compete with it. When Nami shows up, she tells the young guy that she has managed to steal the map, and that he is about to be eliminated after being kicked out of the establishment. At that very moment, the crew learns that the young woman has been working with Arlong the entire time, and she is able to persuade the shark to spare Luffy. Zoro wakes up hours later and learns the truth about Nami. The Straw Hat chooses to go and save his companion, even though he has been misled, since he still thinks she is simply another one of Arlong's victims. The crew has just refueled their ship and is getting ready to set sail when Sanji appears, and lets them know that he will be joining them and taking over as the crew's official cook. The pirates will ask Buggy for assistance in their search for Nami, by leading them to the Fishman Sanctuary. They must pass through a town on their way to the Fishman Sanctuary, where they discover Nami collecting taxes from the locals. Nami is despised by everyone in Kokoyashi village, including her own sister. When Nami recognizes her old friends in the village, she tells them to go because she doesn't need their assistance. After determining that Nami is lying, Luffy resolves to visit her sister, Najiko, and persuades her to divulge all of her knowledge. When they were both young, Arlong's gang overran their community, forcing everyone to pay a levy in order to survive. The mother of the daughters chose to give herself up, so that they might survive, because she didn't have enough money to save herself. The party is left wondering why Nami is working for the man who killed her mother. After hearing this tale, and Luffy is certain that she is being forced to do so. That evening, Nami tells Arlong that she has managed to gather the necessary 100 million berries to purchase Kokoyashi village, and reminds him of their agreement. Arlong is shocked to learn that Nami has been able to gather that much cash, so he requests that she go get it and bring it back to the temple. The shark gives Karubi the order to pursue Nezumi, a Navy agent who is on the outskirts of the hamlet. When Nami goes to collect her reward, Nami comes to her mother's grave shortly after and immediately begins to dig. Nejiko shows up as she pulls out a chest, and commands her sister to explain what she's doing with all that cash. The young woman claims, after being found, that when her mother was killed, she accepted to work with Arlong's group, because she was an excellent map maker. Nami was given the option to purchase Kokoyashi village for 100 million berries. In return for her assistance, she would then have the opportunity to set her people free. Nejiko feels bad for having disliked her sister for so long after learning the truth, and she begs for pardon. On the pretext that the money has been stolen, Nezumi and other marines show up at that precise moment and seize the prize. Nami is devastated and rushes to the shore when she sees those men take the money she has spent her entire life saving. They had, however, already made their getaway. The moment Luffy gets close, Nami admits she is in need of assistance for the first time in her life. When she finds her friends wanting to aid her despite everything she has done, the young woman is shocked and even more startled when she sees the villagers themselves banding together to support her. The 5 companions team up to infiltrate the Fishman sanctuary that morning, and engage in combat with the fishmen. While the rest of the crew engages his followers, Luffy and Nami pursue Arlong. Chu starts pursuing Usopp at this time, so he flees into the forest in an effort to get away from him. When Luffy first encounters Arlong, he is incensed by the way that Arlong treats Nami, and destroys his weapon in retaliation. Then, as he did with everyone who attempted to harm his buddies outside, he commands his friend to leave the area while he deals with the shark. Buggy is able to get his body and flee into the forest, as Zoro and Sanji continue to fight their enemies. Usopp has to avoid Chu's repeated ink squirts while acting defeated, so he may shoot him with an exploding fire bullet. After spending some time trying to harm Arlong, Luffy understands that his blows are ineffective, and chooses to implement a different strategy. He causes the palace to fall by using his superpowers to destroy the columns that sustain it. Arlong rushes the pirate in an effort to stop the onslaught, but Luffy hits him with his rubber leg, and completely destroys his mansion. The crew starts to believe that their captain has been killed at that very instant, when the entire structure collapses. However, when Luffy emerges from the wreckage, everyone is relieved. The villagers throw a celebration now that they've been set free. The Navy, however, ends the party early. The crew is subsequently surrounded by Garp's troops, who immediately challenge Luffy to a duel. The grandfather has yet to come to terms with the reality that his grandson decided to become a pirate as opposed to following in his footsteps and joining the Marines. Garp reveals himself to be stronger than Luffy, despite being older and devoid of any special abilities. He consistently knocks the young guy away with his punches. Even though the Straw Hat is hardly moving after a few blows, he insists that he will never give up on his dream. The young man smiles as he imagines himself as the Pirate King, and declares that he will soon find One Piece. Garp remembers Gold D. Roger at that very moment as he remembers his grandson, who never lost his sparkle in the face of elimination. The Vice Admiral immediately sets Luffy free, and chooses to let him continue on his journey. He bids the boy farewell, and then commands his men to detain Arlong and his adherents. The following morning, when Kobe goes to tell his old friend, Luffy is overjoyed to see that he is needed for questioning. The two pals hugged once more before bidding each other farewell. The captain then heads to inform his group. Numerous bounty hunters will pursue Luffy and his crew, now that his head is worth 30 million berries. But he is unconcerned by that. The Straw Hat gets a gift from his friends, and a custom sail for his ship, before embarking on his next journey. He is ecstatic and believes he has everything he needs to complete his quest.